Jason, thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course, my pleasure, Alina. Good to see you again and hear
I
your
know, good to
voice.
see you. Yeah, you were so sweet. You and Mikey had me on your podcast, Knockin Doors Down, which was super fun. And I was just kind of giggling because I do a lightning round and you do a lightning round. Yours comes at the end. And we were having such a good time. And then you guys asked me a question and I started crying on your podcast.
Oh,
I was
that's
like,
all
oh,
right.
sorry, my bad.
No, it's okay. That's the spectrum of life, right?
Yeah, we get really real, right? Like so transparent when we get sober. It's so funny.
We start to feel our feels. It's a son of
Oh,
a bitch,
I
man.
know. I talked to this lady and she was like, "Oh, you feel better when you get sober. You feel joy better. You feel sadness better. You feel frustration better. You feel." I was like, "Oh, she is not wrong."
Yeah, and we don't escape that shit anymore. So,
No, no, we try to process rather
yes.
than escape these days. But no, I'm super excited to have you on. Turn the tables on you now. I want to hear your story, your recovery story. And I want to talk to you about some of your podcast experiences. I know you've had some cool guests on, like Lamar Odom and Charlie Sheen and Brianne
Yeah.
Davis, and lots of people, everyday people like me.
Yeah. Hey, you're extraordinary. I love you. You're amazing.
I was taught to say thank you at the end of a compliment. So thanks.
That's hard for some of us.
Oh my
I
God.
still struggle.
Do you? Yeah.
Yeah, my girlfriend tells me I'm handsome all the time, and I'm like, I have to let go of the fact that um my insecurities were used to manipulate me, and she is genuine, and
Oh,
it's such
yeah.
like a thing, and she gets it. Like we'll talk it out, and she understands, and so it's weird how some of this shit that gets in our head, mainly when we're kids, really. I
Oh,
mean,
for
so much
sure.
of the stuff from childhood
Yeah.
that we're working out for the remainder of our
The
lives,
duration.
so
Yeah, I interviewed a neuroscientist who talked about the default mode network, which refers to our patterns of thinking, which are established in childhood,
mhm.
right? So it's almost like allowing a 6-year-old to make your decisions for you, when in reality, we're like, that's crazy. I would never do that. But we made decisions when we were very young about who we are and the world
Mhm.
around us, our map of the world. And that's what we operate blindly from.
Oh yeah, that subconscious living is a son of a bitch. I mean, look at
Yeah.
behavior we see in the media, celebrities,
Oh my God.
things that if you're in a good state of self-regulation, we wouldn't do that stuff. I mean,
Right. Right.
knowing your story, you wouldn't do that stuff.
Exactly.
My story, I wouldn't do that stuff. And some of
Yeah.
it's like reflecting back, it's like, oh, that's pretty shitty behavior.
Right. And listen, we're all going to be human, right? We're all going to be making
Yeah,
mistakes. So we're talking right after the Will Smith Chris Rock thing.
sure.
And there's a lot of people really mad at Will Smith, and I get it. And I kind of just keep coming back to, yeah, he made a mistake.
Yeah.
Who are people like us who have made some really big mistakes might be a little more forgiving than
Yeah.
others.
For me, it was more of like, okay, I don't know. I met Jada Pinkett Smith years ago. She was nice when I met her. She was doing rock music at the time. And, but you had a situation where this guy's life was thrown out on the stage. You know what I'm saying? Where the
What
wife,
guy's life?
where Will, sorry,
Oh yeah.
with his wife saying, hey, what did she say? Not a tryst. I forget what your word
Oh, an
she,
entanglement.
an entanglement. I was like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is an entanglement? No,
That's an emotional affair.
yeah, you cheated in one way, shape, or form, whatever it is. And
Yeah.
I think that uh, having been in through that in my own marriage with my ex-wife, it wears a person down,
Yeah.
man, woman, whatever your situation is. And so for me, I was like, I kind of want to give the guy a hug and just be like, dude, it's going to be okay. Like
Yeah.
he's acting out from something that's hurting him. We wouldn't do those things. You wouldn't just walk
Yeah.
up and slap someone.
If I
Whether
were
you
to
think
psychoanalyze, I'd be like, that's some displaced anger.
exactly, that was my thought as
Yeah.
well. But
Displaced anger. Yeah.
so
Bless its
I'd like to
heart.
give the dude a hug. So,
Give him a
anyways,
hug. Yeah, y'all fucked up, but here's a
yeah,
hug.
here's a hug.
Let's do better.
Exactly.
Okay, so I like to start with a lightning round because that's
All
a
right.
kind of a way to front load the episode with some resources. Do you have a favorite book that helped you early in recovery?
Yeah. I got two of them. Definitely Nikki Sixx's Heroin Diaries. I found it really fascinating the way that not only was he one of like my quote unquote heroes when I was a kid. There's like Nikki Sixx and Prince were my two favorite musicians ever.
Oh, nice.
So it's interesting to see him through journals really unfold the depths that our minds can go through the
Yeah.
disease of addiction. And then knowing his story, and I actually had the pleasure, unfortunately not on Knockin Doors Down, but when I did radio, to speak to him a couple of times, once for an interview and one time in person. So it was really, I was yet willing to confront that I was an addict in both the times that I spoke with him. I just thought I was, dude having fun still.
Right. So you were not sober when you interviewed him?
I was sober at that time, but later that day, no, I
Oh,
was not.
got it. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Heroin Diaries. I had not heard that one before, so it's always fun to get a new book.
Yeah,
Any other
really,
books?
really fascinating. And then another one that helped me. It's called The Peaceful Warrior.
Oh,
It's
Way of the Peaceful Warrior,
Way of
Dan
the
Millman.
Peaceful Warrior. Yep, exactly. I had read
Yeah,
that book prior, but I really started to. The book is so much better than the movie. People that go, I watched the movie. You
the
didn't
book is
read the
always
book.
better.
Yeah, the book is so much bigger, better, wonderful. But if you really dig into that main character, he is empty inside. He's
Yeah,
searching for some, goes through multiple marriages, looking for outside solutions to an inside problem. And so
yeah,
I somehow stumbled back upon that book that was given to me from a friend or somebody, 15, 20 years ago. And really pulled that out and just related to that character in a different way than when I read it the first time.
yeah, yeah. It hits you different
Yeah.
as you go through recovery, have more experiences, and assimilate more information. I don't know if you realized it, but you said something very profound: outside solutions to an inside problem. I feel like that's what we do in addiction: is we medicate or we use things, money, people, all kinds of things to try to fix that inside feeling. Love that quote.
Yeah, I actually used your your line, and I did give you credit to.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
one? The bottle in the bag?
yeah. The bottle, the bag, and blue jeans. It was like I I drank everything up and snorted
Yeah.
people, mostly pretty women. So
Yeah.
it,
Um,
yeah.
I think I decided to make that the title of a book, so that I think that's gonna be my memoir title.
I think it's perfect. It suits you so well.
Well, it's so funny because I heard somebody using it the other day, and then I was kind of like, hey, and then anyway, it was so funny.
Yeah,
It's like
just
my one original idea is now out there.
trademark that shit, all right?
I
Anybody
know,
tries to
right?
use it.
So funny. Um, do you have like you just kind of gave me a quote without realizing it, but do you have any other quotes that really have shaped your recovery?
Um, Definitely like I said, the searching for outside solutions to inside problems.
Mhm.
One that sticks with me, and I don't know that it's a quote per se, but
Mhm.
people often talk to me about the higher power, that I just struggle with that idea. They're an atheist or agnostic. They believe something. But once I kind of found that I started, when people ask me, I would start to say, the God I do business for. And
Oh,
so for me, my sponsor, he would say, the God I do business with. And that didn't seem like enough for me. Like, I don't do business with as much as I do for,
okay.
because, and not that God doesn't listen, because he does, it's kind
Uh-huh.
of like that saying, uh, be careful of telling God, or do you want to make God laugh? Tell him your plans.
All right. Yeah.
And so once I kind of started accepting that, look, my prayers get heard. it doesn't come in the way that we ask for it oftentimes. And it's not immediate and things get drawn out. So if I started just doing business for God and listening to what was being said to me to do the right thing, I found that I've screwed shit up less. I just did. It doesn't mean that I'm going to not mess up because I'm human, but it's
Right.
just I did it a lot less. I found myself
Less.
playing scenarios out a lot more like, no, I am
Yeah.
not going to go hang out with those people. All I ever did with those people was drink and thought we had a connection when it was really false and empty. And so
Right.
any of those kind of scenarios. And so for me, it switched to the God I do business for.
I love that. Yeah, because that is more being open, like, to do business for God, as you understand it, sort of implies that you have to be open-minded and paying attention, not only seeing for things, but paying attention to how you feel inside. And when it feels right, that's like the next right action kind of a thing. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. Or are my thoughts at this particular moment in time because I am trying to escape a feeling?
Ooh, yeah.
I
My
mean,
counselor
familiar,
calls
right?
those, what's that?
Familiar, right?
Yes. Yeah. My counselor calls those little exits. She's like, pay attention to where you exit the present moment. Like,
Huh.
what's going on? Because I feel like everybody sort of lives in fantasy land a little bit,
Sure.
and I like the idea of, have you ever heard of quantum jumping?
Explain. I believe so, but
Yeah. So I had never heard that term up until I think it was just like on Sunday. My niece was like, "Oh, I'm following this lady. She talks about quantum jumping." I was like, "What the heck is that?" And what she's talking about is sort of like creative visualization,
mhm.
and utilizing ideas around quantum physics to embody the energy and the thoughts and the feelings of a goal achieved as if it's already happened. Think about it like as if it's already happened, sort of like meditating on the idea of a goal accomplished, what that would feel like, so that you get comfortable with it, but also so that your subconscious mind can start aligning with that vision. So it
Right.
seems like an intentional way to use our imagination and we have really good fantasizing skills. So might as well put them to good use, right?
Yeah,
In a constructive way.
I think it's why I started doing vision boards. My girlfriend and I, because we wanted to have that idea of
Visual.
what life could be like, and being that humans, we are so visual. Like we take so much information in through
Yeah.
vision,
Yeah.
whereas our ears, we were really it was an interesting study when I was still working in radio on why you would continue to play hit records. It's the familiarity. Our ears are attuned to familiarity in things like why it's hard for us to learn a new language. It's not familiar, but certain
Right.
sounds, music can be a time machine. All these different
Yeah.
things. So it's interesting how visualization over auditory stimulation, they just serve such a different purpose for our brain, this amazing, the most amazing computer on the planet. And
Right.
so I think it's really important to do that, like you said, the quantum jumping, or
Yeah.
just having a picture of what life could so much be like, and realize that Matthew McConaughey said it, where he was asked his hero, and he said, myself 5 years from now. And then he was asked, and he was same person interviewed him 5 years later, like, did you become that person? He goes, no, because I set the bar then again 5 years later. That there's no point in trying to reach a finish line. This is not a race. We don't know where the finish line is, so just keep going with different evolutions of yourself. And I was like, all right, all right, all right. Pretty
Little
cool,
nod to McConaughey.
Yeah.
Okay, your identity. So interesting. There's this guy, Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who was on
Yes.
impact theory. Yeah, I actually took a writing class from him years ago, and now I tried to get him on my podcast, but I think he's too big for my britches.
We had him scheduled and he didn't show up.
Oh my goodness, really?
Yeah, but his work is
He
great.
Yeah, his work is great. Yeah, he rescheduled me a few times. I could never get him back on the calendar, but I love his work. And he does talk about your future self a lot. right? And what would my future self do in this situation? I just find it so interesting because it does, our identity is really influences the decisions that we make, whether we're going to be sober or not, whether we're, a lot of people are in this fixed mindset in certain areas about who am I really? Am I a procrastinator? Am I good at math? It's like, is that a learned skill or is that something that has a natural aptitude? But anyway, I'm kind of rambling, but I love the idea of creating our future self as opposed to just being like, this is who I am and that's all there is.
Sure. And I think it's important for everyone to, I mean, you're a parent, you've been through it. I'm a parent of, I see it with between my son and daughter. My son is more, into academia, and my daughter wants to be, but her skill set is she's so talented in art, and she will sit there and go, well, I can't do this like my brother. I can't do that. I'm like, yeah, but your brother can't look at a picture 2 weeks later, sit there and draw it almost to perfection at 12 years
Wow.
old. He
Wow.
can't pull open a tablet and create a beautiful piece of art in an hour that people think it's something you screenshot. I mean, so
Wow.
it's trying to get her to understand. It's like, you don't see the skill sets you have. You can acquire an ability for mathematics and history and
Right.
science and all these things, maybe not to the same level of your brother. And that's okay,
And that's
because,
okay.
embrace what you've got,
Right.
and I think it's a thing we have to do in our sobriety, because our identity is so attached to our disease of addiction, like
Right.
I'm pretty sure you said on the pod, you're Arlena, the fun girl. I was Jason, the fun guy. That's what people knew. We're going to go out. We're going to do shots.
Yeah.
It's going to be lots of laughs. It's going to be a good time. Everybody's going to leave feeling good about themselves. And when you strip that away, it's like, what do I really, do I bring anything anymore? Is that
Right.
all I was? So I think it's almost, you got to start reparenting yourself when
Yeah.
you get sobriety, and finding good mentors, which are important.
Oh my gosh, that is huge. Finding good mentors. There's so many. I have so many mentors. So there's so many teachers out there.
Oh
That's
yeah.
always one of the things that goes on my gratitude list is I'm so grateful for all the teachers that are out there just sharing their wisdom.
Yeah, like you.
So thank you. Thank you. See what I did there?
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Do you have a regular self-care or recovery routine? Like I know you go to meetings. Do you have like a certain number you like to hit or?
Um, I let's see, I'm just over a year again. Because unfortunately I did fall off during the pandemic. People pleasing, we can talk about that later if you
Oh,
want.
that'll be a
That's
good
my
one.
number one defect.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. Um, for me, yeah, meetings, I try to hit 1 to 2 a week. And I do a online men's group that has been awesome. I mean, we are, a variety of
Men's
men. I
group.
mean, some of them, construction worker, rugged looking dudes, hit the gym, run. One guy does triathlons. I mean, all
Okay.
these things, but had struggles talking about his feelings. So we sit and just, there's one gentleman on there who's older, trying to date, and just the way that women, he kept bringing up how women would want to change certain things about him. And he'd be like, I'm at the point where it's like, no, I am who I am, and someone's going to love me for who I am,
Oh my
and
God, the idea of dating in sobriety is terrifying. I feel so sorry for my girlfriends who are going through that.
all right, it sucks.
It sounds terrible.
Which actually had a little bit to do with my falling off, actually.
Okay. Yeah.
But
I hate it when the guys say it, but there's some truth to it. But they say that under every skirt is a slip. Like number one, women don't wear slips anymore. But
right,
I get what you're saying. I get what you're
could you
saying.
even find those?
I know.
All right.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, a lot of people relapse around relationships.
Yes,
That's a big
yes.
trigger.
It's a tough area. It's one of the last areas that we really deal with, I think, a lot of times in recovery. I think that's why a lot of people that enter 12 steps, I don't know where you were at when you had met your husband, but it's why that recommendation of a year for a lot of people is to
Yeah.
find some solidity in who you are and identity, and a better pattern. But you were asking me, so other routines, definitely gratitude list. I'm trying to write more. It's something I know I need to do. I don't
Like
know why.
journaling or book
Journaling.
format? Okay.
Journaling. I don't know why some anxiety sits around that. So that's something I kind of got to take a look at and push
Did
through.
you ever have anybody read something private that you felt?
Yes.
Okay, well, there it is.
Mm,
No
my
wonder.
my ex-wife, and then my only other significant relationship post my divorce. Very
Okay.
much a violation. And
Yeah, well, then that makes sense.
yeah, so that's definitely been a hard thing to come to.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about that. Look at
Oh,
Arlene. No wonder you do what you do for a
I'm telling
living.
you, I got you.
Which is
I have on occasion done the journaling and immediately take it out to the barbecue and light that shit on fire.
yeah, yeah.
It's like, I know I'm going to be alone for an hour and I can get it all out of my body and then right outside to the barbecue and just light it and it's gone. And then just there's something really interesting about writing it because there's this, and I'm actually in the process of writing a book, and I've heard people talk about how sometimes you don't really know what you think until you start writing it out. I had a friend who said he had a BS filter in his elbow, and when he wrote, the truth came out. I was like, that's really good.
And that might be part of it too,
Not wanting to see the truth.
yeah, possibly. I think.
Yeah.
I think I've reconciled a lot of truth and things about myself and at peace with it. But
Well,
I'm sure there is a
you've been
challenge.
in recovery for a while. When did you first start your recovery journey?
20,
You talked about relapse, but you've been around for a while.
2016.
Yeah. So I feel like that is the beginning, right? And even though, we call them relapses or whatever, so you have those in your on your timeline, but the transformation started in 2016.
Yeah. This was post divorce, and it was definitely in trying to be out there dating again. And every time that kind of did, it was just no confidence in it. And of course, it's just where I lived, it seemed that everyone that I met drank. And I
Yeah.
was definitely doing okay, I went 6 months. I'm fine. I got my legal troubles out of the way. Okay,
Mhm.
I'm present for my kids. I'm just out having fun, and it would remain that way until once again it would become not fun, or there would
Right.
be, a struggle between myself and the kid's mom, or um, an issue with someone that I was trying to date, or whatever it was. A lot of it went back to really people pleasing. It just
Uh-huh.
once it was like, okay, I could then tell my story. I wasn't enough. See, everything I thought about myself was right. What's the point? People only really
Yeah.
like me when I'm fun guy anyway. So,
Right.
what a shit excuse, right?
Well, I mean, it's an important question to grapple with, right?
Sure.
And, we pay attention to the thoughts, that sort of train of thinking. And I think a lot of times we don't ask the most important question, which is that really true?
Mm-hmm.
Like, could the opposite be true? You
Yeah.
know, um, and I feel like people pleasing is really rooted in dishonesty based on because we're not being honest about how we feel or think or what we want or what we need. We are first, evaluating the people that are around us. And it's like, what can I do to make you feel a certain way so that I can get my needs met?
Yeah. It's manipulation.
Yeah.
On both sides. There's always, and I think people need to embrace that reality of the spectrum of it. Is yes, there are the people that are manipulative, domineering, controlling, etc., and then there are the people on the other side that are being people pleasing, more submissive, for a lack of a better word, and they're both manipulation, and they play right into each other. And
Yeah.
that's
And I
why
don't, and I don't want
for
to,
me,
I don't want to say like manipulation in the sense of like it can be dysfunctional, but I always want to kind of bring it back to the manipulation is a coping skill,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so if we look at it through the lens of compassion, it's like, why are we practicing this? Right? Because if we can look at it through the lens, it's like identifying behavior patterns and then looking at it through that lens of self-compassion or forgiveness. It's like typically those behavior patterns are learned and those are born out of survival, like a
Mm-hmm.
survival coping skill. And so
Yeah.
I never feel like, oh, I don't want to persecute or judge that, or do you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But let's like, well, let's understand it in a compassionate way so that we can release it without getting defensive.
Sure. I
Yeah.
I I get what you're saying there.
It takes a lot of courage for you to be able to like look at all that and acknowledge it and see it head on. Do you have a lot of, so how did you come to those conclusions? Is it like doing through 12-step work or therapy or?
Some therapy, primarily 12-step work. My sponsor, I've had a couple over the years, but my current one, he's just a really straightforward person, which is what I need.
Yeah, I
And
love
then I
that.
find I can be with him and I help him. And I think once I really started focusing on boundaries,
Ooh,
that was a key thing for me because not only, you know, tell me what you think. Oftentimes, when we think boundaries, we think about externally.
yeah,
Well, no, I started creating boundaries with myself. I will not do this because if I play it out, it will go this way, because
hmm
99 out of 100 times it went that way. So it's going to go that way most likely again. Or um,
yeah,
I love TV and movies. Sometimes it's like I just got to turn the darn TV off so I can get to sleep and be ready to go. It could be whatever
yeah,
kind of boundary it is. So once I started with them within myself, then I started to notice how they trickled outwards,
yeah,
and I just wasn't going to let certain people either into my life at all, or if they are in my life, there's certain things that is none of their damn business, and
right,
they're just not going to get that space.
right.
And
Dude,
so that was
that's some
imperative.
spiritual jujitsu right there. You like, I feel that is so wise. It's the self boundaries that come first, I think,
Yeah, I
because we
think they
have to
have
know.
to.
Yeah. It's like we have to know where our, boundaries are a funny thing. It's like as you grow and evolve, the boundaries change, right? And sometimes you don't know where the boundary is until you cross it.
Yeah, but hey, that's part of learning, right?
That's part of learning and growing. Yeah. If you're not making some mistakes, I don't think you're trying hard enough.
Oh yeah, when we have to, and I think that's one of the great
Yeah.
things about being a parent
Oh,
is
geez.
watching my kids, make some mistakes or make amends.
Hmm.
Whatever it is, it's like goodness, they're so strong, and seeing them do it, it's like, oh yeah, I can continue to do this too. I am not
Yeah.
all knowing. I am too human.
Right. Yeah. No, parenting is really a great teacher.
Yeah.
Um, how old were you when you first started using?
Well, I I really wasn't a drinker, or didn't start drinking until, geez, I think I had my first drink actually when I was pretty young. A guy that worked for my dad, um, younger guy, is like, here, sip a beer. I think I was like 8 or 9 or something like that. But it wasn't something that I wanted in my life. I became pretty aware of my father's addiction when I was 14, 15, 16, in that age area. And
Hmm.
so I was a guy that got people home from the party, the drunk girl, like, oh, Steve's being a dick. And it's like, all right, Kelly, let's
I'll
get
say
you
you
home.
home.
Yeah, I was that guy. I didn't really have an interest in it. But I will say, what substance, or however you want to classify it, because it does obviously trigger dopamine and all these other things, was being exposed to pornography at a very young age. And when I
That
say
is a thing. Yeah.
pornography, I don't mean I found my parents' stuff. No, and my dad and I have reconciled on this and have a beautiful relationship. I like to premise this for people and made our amends, but my dad was probably high or something. And I went down to his shop. He was a truck driver. And, you know, this is the early 80s. And, you know, they're looking at Playboy and, hey, son, you know, look at this, or, you know, and yeah. So
How
for
old were
me,
you?
6, as I recall.
Oh, geez, that's early.
Yeah. So, and of course, you know, different kinds of movies. I mean, my brother and I, you know, we remember watching movies like Caddyshack. There was plenty of nudity and all these things, and
Oh,
a
yeah.
bunch of other stuff that was just there. It was almost a lot of latchkey kid stuff going on.
Uh-huh. Oh
Um,
my gosh.
and people often ask, well, where was your mom? My mom was an amazing mom, but my mom, from about, I believe, 4 till I was about 7, she had 2 different cancers, ovarian and thyroid, which she eventually had to have removed. So my mom, there was a lot of depression between my dad's struggles with addiction, her health issues, and things like that. That now looking back, I don't remember too much from my childhood other than certain trauma pinpoints and like
Mhm.
Disneyland and baseball games. That's kind of about all I recall
So it
from a
was
lot
just
of it.
extremes mostly.
Yeah, yeah, and I never saw my dad use, like, actually caught him snorting anything. He was primarily methamphetamines, which was pretty rampant, unfortunately, in the trucking business at that time.
Heard that, yeah.
Yeah, and my father, I have generational um, love and sex addiction. The men's side on my dad's side, from my dad has traced it all the way back to my great grandfather of you know, multiple women and pornography. And when my
Yeah.
grandfather died, my dad and I were cleaning out his house and found a stack of pornography. My grandpa was 68, 70, something like that. And the man
Yeah.
still had this stuff. It was something that he never got away from.
Yeah.
You know,
I
so
mean, 60s and 70s doesn't surprise me.
yeah. Yeah.
Maybe 80s would surprise me.
So, you know, but this stuff, I think that was like the first drug and the first thing that made me start to go, well, or see a validation of, um, how do I have my father's attention? My dad just wasn't present. But until I hit
Mm.
about dating age 16 or so, started bringing around pretty girls. And my dad, I remember I was 19 years old and he goes, son, man, you've always brought around beautiful women. And the first time I felt validation from
Oh,
my dad,
like approval or
approval, total.
pride or endorsement or
Yep,
yeah.
all of that. So I would say my first addiction really was just women, that validation. And,
Yeah.
you know, people often think the sex part of sex and love addiction. And yes, lots of sex happened, but I more so was a love addict. I remember being a young kid and wanting the prettiest girl in school to get
Yeah.
her approval. And of course, I never did. But there was all these other girls that were now friends as an adult, and they're like, "Oh my God, you were the best little kid and the most handsome guy in high school and the sweetest guy, and like every woman adored you, but not the one I wanted." Arlena,
Oh,
that's
you
the
just didn't
problem,
see
right?
it. Yeah.
Right.
No, I mean, the sex love addiction is probably just as it's very pervasive and persistent. And um, it's something that can also lead you to that very dark place of if you
Yeah.
can't get what you, it's like that deep despair and I'm not worthy to be on
Mhm.
this planet kind of
Yeah.
darkness.
Yeah. Our
It can
mutual
take,
friend Brianne Davis put it well. She said there's 2 things that people oftentimes kill over. It's money and sex and love,
yeah.
you know, and it
I mean,
definitely.
Romeo and Juliet, for fuck's sake.
Right. I mean, it's like people, oh, it's romance. I dated the serious story. I dated this woman that was her favorite Shakespeare and everything, and it's so beautiful and romantic. I'm like, no, woman, it's a
No,
fucking tragedy. It's terrible, is
it's
what it is.
terrible.
Because
Yeah.
these 2 families couldn't get along, and these kids were so miserable, they attached to each other and they took their own lives. You know, it's like,
Ugh,
no,
no,
it's
terrible
not
story.
beautiful.
No,
Yeah, I
agreed.
think it's a great story, but it's not a beautiful story in the romantic sense. It's like, no.
Listen, I don't want to emulate that shit.
Right.
That's a
Exactly.
hard pass for
I
me.
tried. I tried.
Listen, I know, who am I kidding? I tried to. I'm glad we don't have to do that. Okay, so so you were exposed to sort of, it seems like there was a couple things going on. The trauma of having a parent, one parent sick with wrestling with legit life and death, and then another parent that was an addict and indulging in the not just drugs, but the SLAA, the sex love addicts, anonymous sort of arena. Do you feel that that's why you kind of went down the path, is because you were exposed so early and had so much trauma?
Absolutely. I noticed when I hit, so I was 21. I ended up, that's about when I started working in radio. I was going to college, pretty insecure guy, but I have an acting background. So it was like, great, I get to hide behind a microphone and just play music, which I love music, all kinds of music. And, then I think some of the ego started to be filled, because then I go out and host something. I was really always pretty comfortable, and still am, if I go and I speak and I'm not having to be myself per se. If I host MMA events, boxing events, charity events. I've done all these different things and spoke at. When it's just hosting, I can be jovial. When I've got to share who I really am, so I think I really started to play a character. And then being out, around music and everything else, everybody else was drinking, and hey, I wanted to talk to that girl or whatever it was, but wasn't comfortable enough. Well, you get a little liquid courage in you, and there you go. And not that it's not normal. We know it's not normal. No one should be drinking to the point where they're puking, but I figured I was doing normal college things. I wasn't a frequent drinker. I started smoking pot a little bit, wasn't frequent. I wasn't a daily drinker at that point or anything, but I did start to notice the first instances of excess, where it was being out, having such a good time, then holy shit, how did I get home? I need to crawl to the bathroom, or where am I at? Please show me the restroom quick, because I'm going to puke or whatever it is. And so I think that's when I started noticing the first binge stuff, which I was much more of a binge drinker than a daily drinker. I was not a functional drinker. I was not one of those people that could wake up, have a Bloody Mary, go throughout the day. If I was having a Bloody Mary, I'm taking a nap in an hour.
Same. Yeah. I think there's a lot of people who think that alcoholism is daily drinking or drinking constantly, but no, there are different types, and binge drinking is definitely one type.
Yep. And that was me. And then eventually it became daily binge drinking, when it was like, okay, this has to stop.
It progressed, as it does.
Yep.
And what happened that you decided that this is a problem and you're going to start? Was it around 2016? Something happened?
It was prior to that. I was in a very tumultuous marriage. There's a lot of abuse going on, and in all forms. And I didn't like the person I became.
Okay.
And I was coming home one night, and ironically, I was leaving a friend's house, picking up more beer to take home. And I'd only had, I think, 2 beers, which was very unusual for me with this person. Normally it was, I would stay late and, come home to the lights off, so to speak, because I didn't want to come home to the house I had anymore. It certainly wasn't a home.
Right.
And whatever reason, it was like a moment of clarity. I looked in the mirror, I saw the case in the back of the car, and I went, I don't want to do this anymore. And I drove off the road. I hit a power pole, flipped the car. And
was that intentional?
That was intentional.
Oh,
now,
wow.
I told
it was like
the
a
story.
Suicide attempt?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was in a blink of an eye, Arlena. It wasn't something that I thought out, that I had planned. It was literally, it happened that quick.
Wow.
And I walked away. I was less than a quarter of a mile from my house, walked home covered in dirt and some glass and stickers in my hair. I was wearing flip-flops. I had one of them. So I'm walking through a field with thorns and everything else. God. And I knock on the door, and of course, my kid's mom's opens the door like, what the hell? So the unfortunate thing, I couldn't find my phone in the car. Of course, the car was upside down. I crawled out a broken window.
Wow.
So cops, show up at the house. I get taken off to the hospital. And that was kind of really the start of something is really wrong with me. I love and adore my kids. This is not the person I want to be for them. They don't need this kind of chaos. I hate chaos. I am not a person that loves drama. I do not. I can handle a lot of different situations and, skipping from task to task, but my heart, my mind was black. It just was. I saw no future for who and what I was, but I just loved and adored my kids. And that pretty much following that was when divorce started to happen. And so it was through the divorce process, through a counselor who's also a spiritual leader of mine, an amazing man, that I went to my first meeting. And it wasn't too hard to speak. It was just kind of like, boy, there was a lot of people there that continued to seem to talk like they were hoping that there was a solution that would allow them to drink again. And so I stopped going. There's a couple of people that were really switched on, but a lot of it, and even old timers. So there's something that was still kind of empty. And
that speaks to sorry to interrupt you, but that does speak to the idea that all meetings are not created equal.
This is true.
Like people really need to understand that if you're not getting fed at a meeting or you don't feel comfortable, keep trying different meetings.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. So the old timers and people were making you feel like they were hoping that they were going to drink one day.
Yeah, it sounded like the best times that they had was then, in the drinking time. And you and I could be honest, hey, we had a lot of fucking fun partying.
Yeah, good time.
Yeah, and I know you shared your story, until blackout moments where our family members are picking us up, or I got, my dad paying the bail on jail or whatever it is. And, it took me a long time to pay back that money to my folks, as well as the court fees and everything else. So it just left me like, gosh, if I've already passed the best days of my life, why am I here? And so I went out white knuckling it for a while, but
trying to stay sober on your own.
Trying to stay sober on my own. And
that's hard.
Yeah. And I was such a good hider that, people's perception and the lie that I told was a dog ran out in front of me and, whatever else. And I'm going to have the consequences. Because when they did the blood alcohol test, I did the breathalyzer. It wasn't that high. As a matter of fact, I think by the time they took it, it was below the standard level, but being that it was in my system, so I kind of got off light, which thank goodness life.
Like a wet reckless or something.
Yeah, I was wet and reckless, and then leaving the scene of an accident, which I was going to be faced with jail time. And then I went to, the attorney I said, hey, my phone was thrown from the car. I went to my house, the closest place that, being rattled, I did suffer a slight concussion that my brain told me was okay to go to. And so they lightened that a little bit. I did serve probation, ankle monitor, which is such a joy to drop your kids off with. I swear it's the thickest summer, which where I live, it gets up to like 110. And here I am in sweats, making sure that it'll cover it. So I'm not embarrassing them. But I didn't stop there. I didn't. I would just continue to be around people and really hide the fact that I had a problem, because I was around other people that drank the way I did.
Right. Yeah.
So I didn't seem unusual to anyone, because I wasn't missing a lot of work. I wasn't not getting my kids to school or fed or homework done or so it just didn't appear to everyone that it was a problem as much as I knew it was a problem.
That's not uncommon. I hear from people a lot where they say, they start to tell their family members, I'm going to a program, or I need to go. And they're like, you're not that bad. You're not, and it's so disheartening to hear that sometimes, because it's like, don't you see me? Don't you understand me? It's like they don't it's just a very disheartening position to be in.
Don't you think that's important though for people to maybe understand that when they come to grips with it themselves, that they are solely the person that has to?
Absolutely. But you know what's funny? It's sort of a paradox because we hide it. We
Yeah.
try to hide, we hide it. We get good at hiding it. And then when we tell the truth and be like, this is a problem for me, and they're like, oh, I don't think you're an alcoholic, or I don't, I don't see this. That's like, of course you don't. I've been hiding it from you.
All right. I got
you
my
know?
tips and tricks, man.
Yeah.
I am evasive. Yeah, I had a
Yeah.
gentleman I bumped into at the coffee shop. That's what he said. He's like, he was around me frequently. He's like, I never would have known. He's like, you hit it really well. I'm like, yes,
Well,
exactly.
yeah, I didn't hide it at all. Everybody knew. I was the last to know.
uh,
Okay, so you had this initial exposure. The people at the meeting were not super healthy, and which is fair, right? They, say that it's not the hotbed of mental health, but did you when did you decide you were going to go back to meetings and give it another shot?
I'm pretty sure it was 2019. I had had a good stint of sobriety, and then my best friend, who I've been friends with since I was 3 years old, I mean, like a brother, and his mom, I spent a lot of time with his family. They were just there for me. They were pretty aware of the stuff going on with my dad prior to me knowing it. And I mean, I don't just mean coming over and spending the night. I mean, spending holidays, going on family trips with them.
Oh,
But
wow.
it was also the same. My mom was that way too. She was the mom that is like, who wants to go to a baseball game? 10 of my friends raised their hands. She's like, I guess I better find other people to drive. And she, take everyone to a baseball game or something. So very close. His mom, unfortunately, she got no signs of any sort of illness and had a checkup maybe 3 or 4 months prior to that. And all of a sudden got a rapid case of sepsis and was gone just like that.
Yeah, that happened to a friend of mine. That is really shocking when that happens.
Yeah. And it really messed me up, and not having those coping skills at all.
Oh,
I had lost a string of family members. I was close to my grandparents, all of them except my mom's dad. That's kind of an interesting one. But so I was
mhm.
close, and I lost grandma, grandpa, then a grandma, then another grandma, and then my best friend's mom. And so I was trying to deal with all this. And
That is a lot.
yeah, I mean, they were each about 14 to 16 months apart, just in succession. And so these
Oof.
are people that, I'm a sensitive guy. I really am. I love people deeply. And it really messed me up. So I had fallen off then, and then gotten back in the program after my best friend's mom had passed.
Okay,
And so I
okay.
did really pretty good up until dipping in through the pandemic. That was pretty hard. And then kind
Was
of a
it
couple.
the isolation?
It was, and I tried the dating process, and just for me, nice women, issues like anybody else. But for me, I saw so much of a reflection that I was dating the same thing. I was seeking
Mm-hmm.
the same thing, or there was such a similarity of their issues, my issues, that it was an overwhelming thing and took me back to some trauma triggers. And I
Oh,
just,
yeah.
yeah, so I just fell off. I just couldn't seem to. And I would, and it wasn't to the extent, I never went back to that level that I was at, but it would be
Mhm.
like a night, and then it would be like, okay, I can white knuckle this. I didn't have a group when everything shut down. I had no one locally, so there was no support. And so many of us addicts had that same situation until we found the magical technology of Zoom, or
Right.
whatever your conference thing is that you can do now, which
Mhm.
thank God. I mean, it's been the biggest
Seriously.
blessing. Yeah. I can meet with men all over the world, and I do
Yeah.
now, and it's awesome. Um, but really, the last time that I fell off was trying to reconcile a friendship with someone that I had had a relationship with, and trying to move on. But there was on both of our parts still that level of manipulation, no boundaries. And there was just things that really triggered me. And I don't recall driving to the store. I was sober. I was
Whoa.
sober. when I did this. I don't remember driving to the store, buying beer. And the next thing that I do happened when I came to, I had cracked open the third beer. And that's when I called the person that's now my sponsor. Actually, two former guests that have kind of become sponsor and then mentor over here on the other side. And yeah, I was like, Cody, I don't remember going to the store to buy this. He's like, oh, were you drinking prior? I went, no. And he goes, dude, you know how many times that happened to me when I fell off? I don't remember going either. You're going to be fine. And you're going to be fine because you called me. And I dumped the fucking beer out. And then he sat up with me till about 1 a.m. talking. And we, he's like, you need to rework the steps. We're going to tackle it hardcore. You're just that kind of person. You eat up information. You're one of those guys that's just gotta,
You're a
it
seeker.
doesn't work. Yeah, it doesn't work to drag anything out with me. It's like, let's take it all in and process and then figure it out.
Half measures available.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was really blessed that that was the situation. So, I got lucky day after Valentine's Day. So I've been so sober.
Last year?
Yeah. So February 15th is my sober day.
All right. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's this recovery journey is not necessarily a straight line, but I feel like everything happens on God's timing, and everything that happens can be used. There's that, I don't know where it comes from. I don't know if it's a Buddhist saying, but my husband has it on his whiteboard next to his computer. It's like, everything that's happened is the best thing everything that's happening to me is the best thing that could happen to me. I was like, wow, everything. Yeah. Right. I mean, there is that, equal opposite in every lesson, right? Like the depth of the pain is quite often the equal opposite in the joy and the healing that happens on the other side, if you have the courage to face it, with support and process it and get the treasure out of it.
Yeah. Well, I think you nailed it there. The support is I don't know how many of your listeners that it's maybe struggling or a loved one struggling, but there is help. People tell themselves all these stories. I was talking with a lady, Marlena, on that contacted the podcast page, and she's like, well, they're going to lock me up. It's like, what's your perception of lockup? Well, in a facility. I'm like, why do you see it as jail? You do realize you're going somewhere voluntarily, right? You do understand that when you are voluntarily checking in, that you're not a 5150, you are not being detained, that you could voluntarily leave. I recommend you don't. Right. I recommend that I never had the chance to do rehab. I think I'm the only addict that goes, I wish I could have gone to rehab.
Oh my God, me too. I'm so jealous of people that get to go to rehab. I didn't even know that was the thing when I got sober.
Yeah, it wasn't an option. I was the sole income for my family, for both households post the divorce. And so it was, I wish, I know so many people that had such amazing experiences through it, and to sit there and be in a group and cry it out or different tools that people like, you wanted to cry it out. I'm like, yeah, I still struggle to cry it out some days. I would like to be able to cry out some of these things that are still a struggle. So it's a beautiful opportunity, and but ask for help, man. It's there. I mean, you'll talk with people.
Oh my God, please. If you're struggling and you need someone to talk to, and that's different than want someone to talk to. Like, you don't have to want to, you just have to. No, I'm not, don't have to. I don't want to create resistance, but yeah, I'm available to talk. I know you are too. And like, that's what we live for this shit. It's like, because, there were people that were there for us when we got sober. And there's nothing as magical as being able to take all that pain that you had in your past and use it for a purpose, a higher purpose.
Yeah.
Right.
Pay it forward, man.
Pay it forward. Yeah. I mean, we benefit from it too. Don't get me wrong. I understand that it's my service that keeps me sober, among other things, but.
Yeah. It's the irony of the selfishly unselfish, It
is like, there's so many paradoxes in recovery. Right. Surrender to win, give it away to keep it.
And you think, and like, what does that even mean? There's so many of the sayings in group, like, what the fuck does that even mean? It's
How
like,
does it
but
apply? Yeah.
yeah, but you do, you just kind of surrender and just go, look, if I'm just going to be of service and throw it out with no intention of self, all of a sudden you find like, wow, I feel better about myself. I like myself more. I
Yeah.
have a place in this world. I'm serving a purpose. My human
Oh,
experience,
purpose. Yeah.
yeah, my human experience makes more sense. Like, I'm just, we're in this vessel for who knows how long. And we have this beautiful brain of ours that all the different circumstances of life has created, and just here we are, and it's like, wow, I get to have like purpose. I this is the thing I've been looking for since I was a kid. Why we fantasize about being, a professional race car driver or basketball player in my case, or whatever it was.
Rock
It's like,
star.
yeah, we want to be something. We want to do
Yeah.
something that motivates, moves people, but feels good for us too, and it just
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. I remember feeling that way when I hit my 1 year sobriety mark. It's like, oh my God, I have a purpose and my life has meaning now. And it was all the, best things I never knew I always wanted.
Right.
It's very confusing.
Right.
Which is why it's always good to have a mentor.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Jason, I could talk to you forever. We might have to do a round two because I never got around. I got to let you go, but I never got around to ask you about all your podcasting experiences. I know
Oh,
you've
goodness.
interviewed some famous people and stuff, and so we might have to do round two where we talk about lessons learned from podcasting. Which are
Absolutely. There's some beautiful ones, beautiful experiences. Take note. Charlie Sheen was definitely great. Kat Von D was an extra cool surprise experience because I'm a big fan of her husband, who's a musician as well. So I got to meet that guy. And some of the people, like I said, that I'd love to talk about that have become mentors,
yeah.
That's been a beautiful experience, and kind of through it create a community, much like yourself, I'm sure. I mean,
Yeah.
we know some of the same people through
We know a lot
podcasts.
of the same people. Yeah. It's
Right.
kind of, it's a small world, and it's so, I don't know, it just warms my heart that to know that there are so many people who are out there who are really trying to help, right? And I see that in you, and I just want to thank you for all the work that you do. I know podcasting's not easy. It's a lot of work, but you do affect a lot of people in a positive way. So thank you so much for all your work.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that very much. And yeah, it's just starting, my friend. Just
Yeah.
starting. We got so much more to do.
We got a lot to do. Well, I look forward to, I'm going to hold you to round two.
Perfect. I'm in.
Sounds good. Jason, thank you so much for coming on. And I look forward to talking again soon.
My pleasure.